What is up, ladies and gentlemen? After a big episode of Smackdown, we saw ourselves a crazy Intercontinental Championship Fatal 4-Way match. We got ourselves a big announcement for a huge tag team match coming up next week on SmackDown. And also, we got ourselves a big return. So, without further ado, I'm Kevin Jones, the Disciples of Wrestling. So let's hop into it. So, we start off the show with Sonya Deville in the ring, and we go down ourselves of the line of SmackDown's champions. We have ourselves the newly crowned SmackDown Tag Champs, the Mysterios. The newly crowned Women's Tag Champs, Tamina and Natalya. We have the IC Champion, Apollo Crews, with his commander, Zeza. I'm sorry, I don't really know his name. And we have ourselves the SmackDown Women's Champion, Miss Bianca Belair. Miss Sonya Deville goes through everyone. But before she does that, there's a big announcement that live crowds will be back July 16th, which is a SmackDown. They'll be holding a live SmackDown, and we'll be bringing back live events. Now, she goes down this list, talks about the Mysterios, talks about Natalya and Tamina. And then she gets to Apollo Crews, where he interrupts and talks about how he's going to successfully defend his IC championship tonight in the Fatal 4-Way. Then we get to Bianca Belair, and rolling into the ring, we get Miss Bayley. Bayley says, "Where is my parade at?" And she says, after I've carried this brand and staked this dang thing down, being longest reigning SmackDown Women's Champion and also being a double champion throughout COVID, I should be getting a piece of this parade. Now, before Bayley ends up interrupting, Sonya looks to introduce the Tribal Chief after his huge title defense at WrestleMania Backlash, but out comes Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns' old theme song, the Shield theme song. Now he comes out and goes, "This isn't a parade of champions. This is actually a parade of title holders." He not only says that Roman is the only champion in the brand, but he's also the premier champion, the preeminent champion of all of sports entertainment. And he says that later on tonight, Roman will be having his own parade for champion, the single champion of SmackDown and of the WWE. Now, of course, fast forwarding back to when Bayley interrupts, we see Miss Bianca Belair come down and start to confront Bayley as Bayley starts campaigning for another championship match, as she used her hair to pin Bayley last week on WrestleMania Backlash. Miss Bianca Belair comes down, starts to confront her, and right when it looks like Bayley's looking to get out of Bianca Belair and whatever kerfuffle they look like they're about to be a part of, in comes Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, the former women's tag team champions. They beat down Bianca Belair, and come rushing down is Natalya and Tamina, and they also get beat down by the three. But during the commercial break, we see once we come back that Miss Sonya Deville made it official. We have ourselves a 6-woman tag match. Bayley, Nia, and Shayna Baszler versus Tamina, Natalya, and the SmackDown Women's Champion, Bianca Belair. Starting off this tag team match, we actually get ourselves Tamina, and very quickly she gets dominated by the other team, and she eventually overpowers Bayley and tags in Natalya. Natalya looks to get some things swinging into their favor, but gets quickly stopped by Bayley when she yanks her hair down to the mat. And eventually we actually see Natalya fight off Shayna Baszler. She tags in Miss Bianca Belair, and Bianca actually finally gets things rolling into their favor when she actually overwhelms Shayna Baszler with that athleticism and strength. And then eventually she gets Baszler outside the ring and the other 3 women of the tag team outside, where she hits a nice diving crossbody on all 3. But unfortunately, she tweaks her left knee as she fell down on the outside as we go into commercial break. Now, coming from the break, Bayley has zeroed out this left knee and is just taking it to Belair, all up until Belair can fight her off and eventually tag in Miss Tamina. And Tamina cleans house. She cleans house so bad and so crazy. And we actually see some nice tag team chemistry from Natalya and herself, where we even see ourselves a nice shotgun super kick. But eventually we see the ring break down as usual, but we actually see things actually start to get into, of course, Bayley, Nia, and Baszler's side, as Bayley hits a nice belly to belly on Bianca Belair on the outside onto the floor. And we see Bayley start to try to get back into the ring to get Natalya, but Natalya fights her off. But that was all Shayna Baszler need, as she locks in the Karakuda clutch and puts Natalya to sleep for a submission victory for her team. Now, after this great match, we actually see ourselves an interview from Big E, where Caleb Braxton talks about, of course, the Fatal 4-Way, and Big E talks about how he about to give everybody to work and get his championship back. Then we actually see ourselves a nice little segment of Aleister Black, and he actually talks about how he's now about to teach everybody a lesson and separate the weak from the strong in the pack and make things happen. And now we actually get ourselves this next match, and it is Baron Corbin versus Shinsuke Nakamura, coming off of their match from last week where Shinsuke lost, but he took King Corbin's crown. Now King Corbin comes out and he cuts a promo and talks about the disrespect from Shinsuke Nakamura. Yes, he's the king of strong style, but he's disrespecting my kingdom crown. And now he's talking about, since he's disrespecting the crown, he's ready to take it back. And as he calls out Shinsuke to bring himself out, we get ourselves a nice little surprise. It was different. It was real different. And it was Rick Boogs. Yes, Boogs, B-O-O-G-S, as he said. And he says he's ready to rock out with Shinsuke and has his crazy guitar solo and brings out Shinsuke Nakamura in the entrance, and they go crazy. They went so crazy, we actually see Pat McAfee on the commentary table doing the air guitar right ahead of their match. So it starts off with Shinsuke Nakamura in control, using his kicks, making them legs move. We call him nickname Happy Feet, bro. I'm trying to tell you that's going to catch. Nickname Happy Feet for Shinsuke Nakamura. But eventually we see Baron Corbin hit a nice powerbomb to swing things into his favor, all up until we see Shinsuke start to try to build up momentum. But it looked like Corbin had an answer for pretty much everything, all up until Shinsuke hits a nice spinning heel kick. He hits also a nice backstabber and a sliding knee strike. Now he looks to hit the Kinshasa, but we see Corbin end up sidestepping, and then he hits a nice German. Of course, both guys are on the mat, and eventually, when Shinsuke looks to run in, he gets hit with a deep six. Now Corbin looks to go for the end of days, but Boogs ends up distracting him with another guitar solo to where Shinsuke Nakamura reverses it, hits a nice roll-up, and gets the win. Now we get ourselves a backstage segment, and it is Jimmy Uso approaching Miss Sonya Deville, saying that, hey, we've been on the sidelines, it's been over a year, but the Usos are ready. They ready and they want to smoke. Calling out the Street Profits, saying that he wants them tonight, Usos versus Profits. But Sonya Deville says, slow down. A match like that needs build. So how about next week? We get it to you. And we even saw some confusion on Sonya Deville, asking if she clarified even from Jay and from the Tribal Chief. But Jimmy said, it's all good. I know what's best for me and my brother. So next week we are getting it. And it will be the Usos versus the Street Profits. Next up, we get ourselves the Champion Parade, where, of course, is the celebration of the Tribal Chief, the Universal Champion, Mr. Roman Reigns. He comes out and he's flanked, of course, by the right-hand man, Jey Uso, his cousin, and, of course, his counsel, his chief counsel, Mr. Paul Heyman. He comes out and Roman flat out says, hey, I'm a humble man. I don't like to brag. So, that's why I got Paul. Tell him about me, Paul. And Paul talks about all the men that he's beat since he's come back last year at SummerSlam, going down the list of people, just going from then to now at WrestleMania Backlash. And he goes, what do you want me to do next for you, Chief? And he goes, bring out my cousin. Now, of course, he says bring out Jimmy. But instead, he gets Cesaro in a sling, might I add. And, of course, Roman's like, hey, cut off this bum's music. Why you out here, bro? I asked for my cousin. And he goes, I can't find Seth, but I kept hearing the garbage you was talking. So I'm here to just tell you, even in this sling, I can beat you. And Roman like, bro, you couldn't even beat me Sunday with 2 arms. And he goes, you know what, how about we make this thing clear and let's run this back at Hell in a Cell. But before Roman can give his answer, which we knew it would have been no, we actually get ourselves Seth Rollins coming from behind on the entrance and attacking Cesaro. Going, of course, after that injured arm once again, all up until we get some officials out to stop Seth. Now, of course, he stops him. He goes up and goes, why won't you ever learn? But he comes back, and sets up Cesaro with a stomp. Now he goes to the other side of the barricade, going into the crowd area, and then he hops the barricade and gives another stomp. And then he walks off to the back as he's, satisfied a little bit with his job. Now he comes back after the break and he's getting interviewed. And she's like, hey, bro, like, what's gotten into you? And Seth is like, I don't know. I'm not like this at all. This isn't who I am. Now, as he's saying this, we see Mr. Cesaro get carted on the stretcher. And he goes up to Cesaro and says, look what you done to me. Look at what you done to me. Why can't you ever learn? And I'm like, hey, bro, Seth, I understand, bro. I feel you. I feel you. But that was that segment, and let's hop into the next match. Now, as we start to the next match, we get ourselves Bobby Roode, accompanied by Dolph Ziggler, his Dirty Dolph's partner, against Dominik Mysterio, accompanied by his daddy, you know what I'm saying, Rey Mysterio. Now, as Bobby's coming down, he flat out says, hey, bro, you don't belong. I'm tired of you riding off the coattails of your daddy. I'm about to show you what time it is. I'm about to knock you off this little pedestal you think you own, and we gonna get our tag belts back. Now, of course, as he says this, he says it's go time and it's show time. Now, Roode starts off with all the control, knocking him over with suplexes, but eventually Dominik gets a reversal. But Roode got some more for him. He beating him down all up until, of course, we see Dominik build up some much-needed momentum where he hits a nice crossbody off the top rope, and he looks to go for the Tornado DDT, but Roode has an answer for that as well. Now, of course, Dominik ends up setting up Roode for the 619, looks to run, and of course, we see Dolph Ziggler up on the apron. But, that's a little lightweight for Mr. Rey Mysterio as he takes out Dolph Ziggler very quickly, catching a super kick and throwing it right into the steel steps. Then, of course, we see Dominik knock out some more moves and set up Roode for a 619 once again, and he hits it with a frog splash for the win. Now, next up, we go backstage to where Jay actually talks to Roman. Now, before this, we actually had a separate segment where Jimmy went up to Jay, and Jay was a little upset how Jimmy didn't even talk to him first about the tag match with the Street Profits next week. Now, of course, Jay was like, hey, bro, I'm in this for you. I'm in this for us. It is always about us. And Jay was like, we didn't even talk to Roman. And he said, forget him. He said, you won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal without him, and we won the tag belts without him. Now it's time for us to do what's best for us. And Jay said, I'm going to at least tell Roman because I owe him that much. Now we go to where Jay is actually telling it to Roman. Roman is visibly and clearly upset about this move. And he said, I don't even, who's we? Just as Jay was about to get hyped up for this match, he said, who is we? We is me and you. We are part of this. We know what the mission is. We're doing this for our family. Jimmy is selfish right now. He is not doing this for us at all. So there's no tag team match at all. There's no we. It's just him. So with that being said, we go over to the Street Profits. Talk about the dysfunctional family, of course. But they said, we ready. Because the Street Profits are up and we won't smoke. Now it's main event time. It is the fatal four-way for the Intercontinental Championship. We got ourselves the champion, Apollo Crews. With, of course, his man, the commander, Azizi or Zaza or Zoza. Don't know his name for real. Then we got, of course, the challenger, the former IC champion. Of course, Mr. Big E. Then the other former IC champion, Mr. Sami Zayn. And of course, stun them all, the prize fighter is back. KO is in this match as well. Now we start off and we get KO going right after Sami Zayn, and we get Big E going right after Apollo. Then we end up seeing things break down as Big E and Apollo are left in the ring, and we see Big E takes out Apollo. Then Big E gets taken out by KO, and then we see KO getting taken out by Sami Zayn. Now, as Sami is in control, we see Big E throw him outside the ring to take him, and our champion, Mr. Apollo Crews, hit a big splash on the apron. As he does this, we see a tope con hero from Mr. KO going into the break on Big E. Now we come back and break, and we actually get Apollo and Big E in the ring again. Now they're going back and forth all up until Apollo hits a nice moonsault off the apron to take out E. And then we see Sammy come, and he hits one of his own from off the barricade to take out Apollo Crews. Now we see KO end up rushing in and throwing Sammy into the ring to hit a nice swanton for a near fall that was broken up. And then E comes in and takes out KO with a nice little clothesline. Now we see things break down all up until we see Sammy and KO in the ring, and Sammy's in control. All up until they fight up to the top rope, where KO hits a nice little fisherman brain buster for a near fall, but we actually see things break down again, where we see Apollo and E get back into the ring, and we see things folding up again, leading up to where E actually hits a phenomenal spear onto Apollo, going out into the crowd, out to the outside on the floor, going into another break. Now we come back from our last commercial break, and it is E and Apollo in the ring once again going at it. Now Apollo ends up taking out everyone, KO, Sammy, and E, and yells, "Nobody's taking my title." Now as he does this, E got an answer for that thing right there, as he goes for a nice 2 belly to bellies on Apollo and one for Sammy as well for his luck. And then Big E looks to hit that nice belly splash, but it's stopped by Sammy. Now Sammy ends up getting taken out by KO, and KO looks to go up to the top rope once again, but it was stopped by Apollo. Now we end up seeing things break down as E ends up German suplexing Apollo and Sami Zayn, as Sammy was looking to hit a nice exploder on Apollo. Now as this happens, all 3 men are on the ground, and we see KO come in with a nice frog splash, and he gets a near fall as well. Now we see Sammy end up turning things around after we see KO go for a cannonball for everybody. But Sammy hits a nice half and half and a blue thunder bomb for a near fall. Things are falling out again, and we actually see things go crazy all up until Big E hits the big ending on Apollo. He looks to get the win, and as he pins, we see Commander Azazi or whatever come out and take the ref out. Actually takes out Big E. Big E ends up getting one up on Commander and guns up coming in. And as he gets in the ring, the lights go out. Yeah. Out of the smoke comes Mr. Aleister Black, and he has his eyes set on Big E. Why? I do not know, but I can't wait to figure out why. Because he comes in and Apollo holds Big E's leg, and we see Aleister hit a black mask, and we see Apollo pin Big E, and we see Apollo retain his IC championship. Now for me, this was an entertaining episode of Smackdown. Sorry, I couldn't get that out. I was working on it, but something happened. But anyway, very, very entertaining episode. Really enjoyed it from start to finish, and a phenomenal main event, touched by a phenomenal chef's kiss with Aleister Black's return. I can't wait to see why he picked out Big E. As he said earlier in the night, he's looking to separate the weak from the strong. So does he think Big E is weak now, since he separated himself from the New Day and gone soft after he lost his IC championship? I don't know, but I can't wait to see what happens next week. And of course, guys, check out these videos from earlier this week, where of course Jordan goes over his NXT recap, and we see Asante hit up the Raw recap. And I'll be back to you guys for the Raw recap next week. And until then, I'm Kevin Jones, and that was wrestling.